This is a production of SDPB.
It's a great small town. We love to help each other. We are always there for each other in crisis if needed.
It just feels like home. It's just that comfortable, and it's safe, and it's everything, I guess, that big city living is not.
We like to have fun. We like to gather.
Greetings from Eureka.
Greetings from Eureka.
Greetings from Eureka! I don't know, välkommen!
Greetings from Eureka.
Bye.
Greetings from Eureka, everyone.
Greetings from Eureka.
Greetings from Eureka!
Greetings from Eureka, South Dakota.
Greetings from Eureka.
Eureka.
Greetings from Eureka. And if you're ever in Eureka, stop and see us. We'd love to visit with you.
Greetings from Eureka. You're here at Eureka Fest. We hope you have a really good time and come back again next year.
Dakota Life, Greetings from Eureka, is supported with your membership in the Friends of SDPB. Thank you. And by Ken's Superfair Foods in Eureka. One of 6 locations in Northeast South Dakota, Ken's is proud to support this episode of Dakota Life and the Eureka community. Ken's, where saving money is a family tradition. And from Agtegra Cooperative, your local hometown cooperative, farmer-owned for over 100 years. Agtegra, strong, stable, dependable, and local.
Donors to the Explore South Dakota Fund support the production of local documentaries and other programs of local interest presented by SDPB. Friends of SDPB appreciates their support of this program.
It's a very special day in downtown Eureka. Strike up the band. It's homecoming. Students of all ages rally support for their school by taking to the streets during the annual parade competition.
First place right here, definitely.
Yes.
That is a very good goal, girl. Very good girl.
Of course, homecoming is so much more than just candy and kids cheering. It's a day to celebrate camaraderie and nostalgia. And for all those classes past who have left their old stomping grounds, to come home.
We are in Eureka, South Dakota today at the pep rally for Thunder. It is homecoming week. Eureka, South Dakota. Look at all the wonderful people behind us, the band. The parents are here for the pep rally. They had an amazing parade here today, and I would love to welcome each and every one of you to Eureka, South Dakota.
Part of homecoming's magic is passing the torch from one class to the next and making sure the fire stays lit for the next generation. We'll come back to homecoming throughout the show, but first, let's learn about some of Eureka's earliest school days.
The first day of school in Eureka was August 30th of 1888. The first teacher was Mrs. Rena McKeever. She had 40 students in a one-room schoolhouse. The students were ages 6 to 16, and most of them studied the same thing because there were so many kids, students, that did not speak English. Like I said, she had 40 students the first term, which was 3 months. Then it turned into 80 students, and then 116. She was the only teacher. And then in this scrapbook, it said, one morning the students were startled when they saw Indian faces looking in their school window. Shortly after that, someone came to school and said, don't worry, they're peaceful. They came to Eureka to take the train to Washington, D.C. to talk to the Great White Father about better rations for their people and more stock cattle. Mrs. McKeever also listed some of the names of her students. One of her students was Mary Worthy. Her parents owned a meat market in early day Eureka, and Mary Worthy was one of the students who went to the depot, and she knew a couple words in the Indian language. One of the chiefs was Sitting Bull, so she went up to Sitting Bull. He was wearing a blue serge suit with a white shawl over his shoulders, and Mary Worthy walked up to him and she said, nice, in his language. He was so taken by this young blonde, blue-eyed little girl that the next spring he sent 2 of his braves to the Worthy house with a fawn. How interesting is that?
In the nearly century and a half since then, a lot has changed in Eureka, but school has always seemed to be at the heart of it. "100 years after the first class with Rena McKeever, we get a message from the mayor.
Well, I am Wendy Brockle. I have lived in Eureka forever, all my life except for going to school. And I am the mayor of Eureka, the first female mayor of Eureka. There was a lot going on all the time. I obviously went to school. Saturday nights were great around here 50-some years ago. I'm not going to date myself here. 50-some years ago, there were dances, Saturday nights and everything. Yeah, I love growing up here. We've got homecoming tonight. We've had the parade today. We had the pep rally today. Right now is a middle school game going on, and then the high school game, the high school football game tonight. Yeah, it'll be good, and the field out there is beautiful. Under the lights by the lake. It's great.
But before we head out to the game, I asked the first female mayor of Eureka if she had any advice for the pep rally kids who may one day care for this town.
You know what? If you feel strongly about something, do it. Just step in there, even if you're like, oh, I can't do that. I just do it. Just do it. Yeah.
And your North Central Thunder!
Things are just getting started out at the stadium, but before the game, producer Greg Beasley introduces us to another caregiver who learned how to step up when needed and just do it.
Isla Ray Reich has lived quite the life, and it all started in a little town north of Eureka.
I was born in Linton, North Dakota, 6 August 1937, in a little yellow house behind the fire station. At the age of 6, we moved to Eureka, South Dakota, where my father worked for a car company, and my mother took care of the 4 children that she had at that time. Started first grade in Eureka through the 12th. Graduated in 1955.
Isla worked many jobs throughout her time in Eureka, but it was one job that would help set her future.
I did a nurse's aide at the hospital, and I decided I would become a nurse.
Soon Isla realized she wanted to travel, so she hopped on the train and headed out west. And after working in California for a little bit, she knew it was time for something more.
I joined the military in September of '63. When I was Air Force, from 1963 to '65, I did basic at Gunter Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama.
Being in the Air Force, Isla was ready to hit the skies.
We flew C-131s from Maine to Florida with deadhead, that means without patience, from the East Coast at McGuire to Elmendorf, Alaska, which was Anchorage. And there we would pick up our flights that were casualties from the Vietnam conflict.
Isla would spend a couple more years in the Air Force, making it all the way to the rank of captain, but the call to service was too great to resist.
Having been Air Force for 6 years, from 63 to 69, I was out from 69 through 78, I was out for 8 years. And then I went back into the Army till 80, and then I was Army Reserve until 96. And so I have 24 years of military experience.
Isla would move up to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, one of the few women at that time to earn that rank.
We're just fortunate as females to have this type of rank. I think rank is now almost not equal, but getting there, that females can come up to the same point as males do as far as rank is concerned.
Thanks to some friends, this past year, Isla was awarded the Quilt of Valor for her service.
It was quite an honor to get the quilt. So I had my niece, Kelly Sue Wolf, and Hunter Heinrich present the quilt to me. When the quilt was presented to me, they wrapped it around my shoulders. It's a treasure, much of a treasure, to be recognized. I said, a nurse is a nurse is a nurse. I can nurse any place. I can have a job anywhere. But when it comes to areas of age or levels of education or whatever it is, they need to be informed of how to protect our nation. And you don't think of these things until much later on in life. It just doesn't happen. You kind of grow with this. I mean, someone asked me when I was flying, why are you doing this? Well, it's a job. At that point, it was a job for me. But as you grow older, you value it. It's the value of it.
In life, as on the football field, each position has a job, and all of them are important. A good team values everyone because the only way we all win is by working together. Eureka's earliest residents each brought their own set of skills, but when combined, they were able to produce incredible things. When these European settlers arrived on the prairie, their stationary lifestyle was vastly different than the mobile teepees that dotted the landscape beforehand.
Settlers first came to this area, to McPherson County, in 1884. And the earliest immigrants came with few belongings. Their first home on the prairie was often just the wagons that they came in. Many dug a large hole in the ground, tipped their wagons over and covered them with canvas, and that's where a lot of them lived until they could get a home built. They used sod to build their houses. They used cow chips and corn cobs to burn as fuel. And after the railroad was finished, immigrants started moving to Eureka.
But despite its rapidly growing population, the burgeoning town's original name was a little too on the nose for some of its new residents.
First train came to Eureka in 1887. They stopped in Eureka and they named this End of Track for a while. We don't know how the name Eureka how they got their name, but it was for End of Track for about, at least as far as I could tell, for about 3 months. Then all of a sudden they came up with a name. And then from there on, Eureka grew.
Many of those immigrants were of German-Russian heritage. At the invitation of rulers like Catherine the Great, their ancestors brought agricultural know-how to Russia in exchange for land and an exemption from military service and taxes. But decades of war and eroding privileges left many seeking greener pastures elsewhere.
When people came from Odessa, they sent an agent ahead to look for a spot that would be suitable. They settled on this area because the latitude was the same, the soil was the same, and the climate was the same.
Once here, farmers began sowing seeds and putting down roots.
There was a lot of wheat grown around Eureka. In 1886, 2/3 of the world's wheat was grown in a 75-mile radius around Eureka. They had to come here because the train had no way to get it to a mill anyplace, and they'd bring it to Eureka. Usually it took them a day or two to get here, and then they had to stay a couple days. They had to empty their trailers of wheat, and in 1896,
Eureka was the world's wheat capital.
yeah, it was the world's wheat capital from
1887
to 1902.
And then that's when they extended the railroad into North Dakota, and people who lived closer to North Dakota took their wheat. And in 1985 is when the tracks were taken out. That's when our population declined.
Went from 1,500 to about 900. People coming and going.
In a moment, we're going to learn how the descendants of those German-Russian immigrants came to celebrate their heritage here in Eureka. But first, it's almost halftime back at the game. With the Thunder up by 6, the halftime whistle blows and players head to the locker room. Mayor Wendy introduces me to a longtime fan of Eureka football. Don Fisher might have retired after selling his business in 2017, but you can still find him helping out around the school.
Well, back when I was in high school, we had like 272 in high school, and now I think we're about 140. So the enrollment has gone down quite a bit. We were playing at that time 11-man football, where they're playing 9 now. At that time we were Trojans, Eureka Trojans.
Whether going by the Trojans, the Patriots, the Cardinals, or the Thunder, Eureka sports teams have some things in common.
We are wonderful people. We try to greet anybody that comes to Eureka. We got a beautiful lake, we got a beautiful sports complex, we got a good school, and I love it.
As the second half kicks off, Don reminds me of Eureka's German-Russian heritage.
We're mostly all German people. Germans love good food, dough food.
The Eureka Fest, which originated years ago as Eureka Schmeck Fest. Schmeck means smelling. It probably doesn't make sense. When you speak German, it's kind of backwards. So Schmeckfest, of course, we all know what fest is. Schmeck means to smell.
It conveys an entire thought about how good food is and how good it smells. And if you say it right, you can almost feel your mouth watering.
I know they ran out of cheese buttons. One vendor had Nifla, which was fried with hash browns and butter. What's popular is the pork hamburger. It's like a pork sausage, but it's in a patty.
Oh, Kuchen. Yeah, the dessert. We get Kuchen at the store and we pack it up and take it 13 hours home every year.
Oh, things like strudel and Schupfnudler and Käseknäffler and Borscht soup and Kuchen and, oh my goodness, Halupsi. Ethnic foods, and yet they're not really German and they're not really Russian. It's a mixture of that German-Russian heritage.
We had like a Germans from Russians group, and what they had was a German supper with German entertainment, probably a polka band and so forth. And I remember meeting with some of them at their home, and it didn't go so well, where I said, well, maybe we should expand this from just having a little supper to a 2 or 3 day event. You know what? They listened and it took off, and we got a committee together. And the biggest highlight I remember is we used to have a talent show. We used to have the theater, 200-300 people. We would pack that on a Friday night and 2 shows on a Saturday. And we'd have, the big parade, and then in the evening we'd have a German supper with entertainment, old-time music. This has been going on for a long time, and we're hoping that the next generation can take it over and we can all sit back, some of us, and relax and not be in things 3 days in a row. But no, we want to carry on this tradition of the old-time tradition of the Germans from Russian heritage.
Now, producer Greg Beasley introduces us to one member of that next generation.
When you walk through Hunter Heinrich's house, you never know what you're gonna see.
I started collecting antiques. I was about 11 years old. My grandmother, she moved into the nursing home, so we had the task of cleaning her house out, and we kind of started finding these interesting things, especially the advertising stuff. That's what I originally got interested in.
While some folks specialize in sports cards, comic books, or other memorabilia, Hunter focuses on things that highlight his hometown.
To give you guys, if you may not know, advertising items were different items with business names on them that were usually given out for Christmas. So she had accumulated a few of these items, so as we were cleaning the house out, I found a few more and a few more and a few more, and that's how I got started. If I had to guess, I would say roughly 2,000, 2,500 different items, so lots.
But why advertising items?
I think when we were going through my grandmother's items, I kind of remember me thinking, how many different items are there actually out there? Because we would find a few unique items. We found, I remember, a few calendars, a few bowls, things like that. So I said to my parents, I said, well, I would like to start going to auction sales and seeing if I could find any more of this stuff. Well, I'm still finding new things to this day that I didn't realize even existed. So it's always a hunt. There's always new items that I had no clue that were out there.
As a collector and a member of the Germans from Russia Heritage Society, history is important to Hunter. That includes music.
There was a lady in Eureka. They were cleaning out her dad's house. He had passed away, and her dad was in a polka band with my grandfather, and my grandfather could play the accordion as well, but he played the steel guitar in that polka band. But anyway, she had the accordion, and she said, I don't want it. If you want it, to see if you could try to learn it or whatever, and if not, just do whatever you want with it. So I took it home, and I started messing around with it a little bit, and I think it took me 2 weeks to learn my first song. And now, I could play 100 or more songs, and I had no lessons. I was all self-taught, and all the songs I learned I picked up from hearing them from other people or on the radio or different music that I have. So yeah, I might probably one of the last accordion players in this area. There's a few, but there's not too many anymore.
As long as Hunter's around, the history of the sights and sounds of the town of Eureka are safe in his hands.
I think it means everything, because as the older generation slowly passes away, we lose a piece of history with each passing of our town, so to speak. So to me, preserving some of the history of Eureka and the surrounding area, that gives at least people an idea of what the town used to be like.
At the end of the game, it's usually not whether we won or lost, but rather who we shared the field with and the relationships we made along the way. Producer Jason Andera introduces us to one Eureka relationship that was meant to be.
At 84 and 87 years old, Janice and Joel remind you of young lovebirds.
This woman was there and said, boy, how long have you been married? You know, this boy, you look like my newlyweds. And I said, we are.
Their story begins in the late 50s. Joel, then 19, would cruise his 1950 Ford into Hosmer, South Dakota, a small town outside of Eureka.
Eureka boys were coming to Hosmer, so we had to be uptown, you know.
Joel noticed Janice, She was 16, bright-eyed, sitting right beside him in his Ford.
And of course, she had to sit beside me. I say she kicked the girls away so they couldn't get the rest there, but not really. And that's when I asked her for a date. She was 16 and I was 19.
We'd go get together and then we'd go drive to different towns. Sometimes we'd go to Roscoe, sometimes we'd go to Bonneville, and then back to see what everybody was doing. We just drove around.
But Daddy didn't trust her.
Yeah. He sent my brother along with us. I didn't find this out until a year before he passed on. He finally told us, he said that Dad didn't trust you two, so he sent me along to be with you guys.
The pressure grew. For nearly 2 years, Janice's father urged her to end things with Joel.
Finally said,
Yeah.
I'm getting tired of the folks disagreeing with us, and I need to finish my school.
So I figured, well, the heck with it. If I'm not good enough, then I joined the Army.
Their young love story ended before it had a chance to begin. Life moved on. Janice married and moved to Gillette, Wyoming. Joel returned from the service and married Janice's cousin. For nearly 50 years, they lived entirely separate lives. No calls, no letters, no idea where the other was.
And he didn't know where I was, and I didn't know where he was.
I asked a couple of guys where she's at, but nobody knew anything.
In her early 70s, Janice decided to attend a class reunion with her brother in Deadwood, South Dakota.
And this one guy, he says, don't you want to know anything what's going on up in South Dakota? And I says, well, I don't know. Then I named a few names, and then I named his name and March. And they says, well, did you know March passed on? And I says, no, I did not know that. So I got to thinking, well, I know how I felt, because I had been a widow for 10 years already. And I thought I should send him a sympathy card. But then I thought he won't know who I am, by my last name or anything. So then I thought, well, I'll make a telephone call instead. That's where we connected.
After that first phone call, Joel says his heart nearly jumped out of his chest.
Yeah, if I could have jumped in the car and went way over to Wyoming that night, I think I would have went. But
They began talking like teenagers again. Phone bills started to climb, and Janice decided to see him in person. She was back in South Dakota for a funeral and finally had an excuse to see Joel face to face.
she came out there and I hugged her and I was going to kiss her, and her daughter stood there and looked
With the camera.
I think, oh, way am I going to kiss her? The way she's looking at me.
Decades had passed, but their love had waited patiently, and Joel didn't waste time.
And I'll never forget my son's face and my son-in-law and them, they were sitting there. Did he really ask you? I says, yes, he did ask me to get married, and I did say yes.
Well, I don't know. She was my first choice, I guess, and I guess you hypnotized me. That's all
Yeah,
can
I
say.
hypnotized him.
So,
They chose July 4th for their wedding. Easy to remember Joel jokes.
And since she was getting so old, I figured we'd better get married on the 4th of July so we can remember the date.
Yeah.
They married in a little country church that's now a museum in Eureka. A love story separated by time, brought back by fate, and finally fulfilled.
It all came from above, I guess.
I think the dear Lord seen to it.
Just the way it was supposed to be.
If you've missed any of our stories here in Eureka, or just want to go back and take another look, you can see more at sdpb.org/DakotaLife.